Welcome to Climate Channel. Climate is changing, and we are welcoming you all to watch Climate Channel, Climate Conversation with Kamrul Chaudhary, Climate Action Pathways 45th episode. In this episode, we are having climate conversation with Ambassador Franz Paris, who has been in climate negotiation for many months. We are pleased to have him, and in this conversation, we are going to discuss with upcoming COP26 pre-COP in Milan, and also the United Nations General Assembly Climate Week. So without much ado, I would now like to request Franz Paris, Ambassador of Switzerland, who has been a lead negotiator for Environmental Integrity Group, a group of countries who have been in this process, in this climate parlance, for ensuring the integrity of the conventions, all the Rio conventions, integrity of the climate negotiations, climate decisions, and also implementations. He is an ardent supporter of climate parlance. I would now like to request Ambassador Franz Paris to share his take on Climate Week, which is now being held in New York, and also what is his expectation from pre-COP in Milan ahead of Glasgow COP26, which is the last trail to reach 1.5 degree Paris Agreement temperature rise goal keep alive. Ambassador Franz Paris.
Thank you, Raj, Kamrul, and thank you really much also for inviting me again to this show. I think we are in a really critical moment. On the one side, the Climate Week and the statements that we have heard at the UN General Assembly can give you some some optimism. We had heard a significant pledge from the US with regard to financing. We had also heard from other leaders a clear signal that they are willing to move ahead with ambition. So I think we can build on something positive from the UN General Assembly. But at the same time, it's clear that we are not yet there where we should be. And therefore, the pre-COP will be another important moment in our road towards Glasgow. Let me just repeat, I think the three most important elements and expectations for Glasgow, they relate to rules, they relate to ambition, and they relate to finance. In all three areas, we are in a really difficult situation. In rules, the disagreement with regard to the Article 6 implementation rules, with regard to transparency, and with regard to common timeframes, these differences remain still big. And I hope that the pre-COP will be a moment where ministers can exchange and where they can start identifying landing zones for these three areas of the rules. With regard to finance, we are also not where we should be. It becomes increasingly clear that the objective to deliver 100 billion in 2020 will not be reached. And so this is something really negative, but at the same moment, I think it becomes also very clear the strong commitment by the world countries to do everything to reach this number as soon as possible. And therefore, it's also positive that we are now working on a plan to outline exactly in a robust and honest manner how we reach that objective. And with regard to ambition or mitigation, there, I think it's clearly that the last signals that we have received, the NDC report, the NDC synthesis report also shows very clearly that we are not where we are. And we really hope that during the next weeks and months, additional commitments will be formulated so that we make another step forwards towards a 1.5 degree pathway. Thanks.
Thank you very much for sharing your take. And now we are always lucky to have the Cartagena dialogue before all the conference of the parties in even in the sideline of SBs, we had earlier Cartagena dialogue. This time also, as co-chair, you are going to post that before the pre-COP in Milano. And so, what is your expectation also from and reflection for Cartagena dialogue of a group of countries who are trying to say arc out the landing zones, as you say, that in the say crunch issues before us in the negotiation.
Yes, you make an important reference. I think that meeting of the Cartagena dialogue will also be a critical meeting. The Cartagena dialogue brings together ambitious, progressive countries from all around the world. And we have not been able to meet in person since Madrid. And these in-person meetings are really important in order they allow for an exchange that is much deeper, much more personal also than only through virtual means. The Cartagena dialogue will meet in Lugano in Switzerland, close to Milano in Italy. So about a 1 hour train ride away from the pre-COP. And what we will do over 3 days there in Lugano, that is really look very closely at the different elements on which we want to deliver at Glasgow. So we strategize together for the pre-COP, but also for Glasgow. We will deepen our position, we'll deepen our understanding of what has to be done, of the needs and of the different options. And I hope that this Cartagena meeting will empower each of us to work together to make sure that Glasgow will be a good COP.
Thank you very much for sharing also an update on Cartagena dialogue, because this is going to be an important, say, meeting physically before Milano and also on our road to Glasgow COP26. Now I would like to come back to your person because you are an important climate negotiator and I personally have seen you a very proactive role. So my say interest is that how do you come into this level of say as a negotiator? Who has been your mentors? Who has been your trainers, especially on climate change issues, on environmental issues, environmental convention negotiation, or say as an expert in this field? Who have been your professors, your gurus? So I would also like to recall them from your perspective, who has groomed up you as a climate negotiator, as a climate expert, environmental expert, biodiversity thinker, or overall Rio Convention promoter.
Thank you very much for these very kind words, Kamrul. But I think what you and I both know, we will only be able to deliver together. And so it's always important to have persons also like you who are bringing together an important group, who is working in this important group of the LDCs to make sure that we will progress. I think what is important is that we together from all our constituencies work together to make sure that we strive towards not the lowest common denominator, but to the highest one, so that we have a good outcome in Glasgow. And for me personally, it's always very enriching to work together with the LDCs, with ILAC, with AOSIS, because these are also the groups that help us to maintain our energy and our positive attitude towards that process. So also a big thank to you, Kamrul.
No, I would also like to ask you or take your indulgence. Who has taught you? Who has been your professors, your gurus, and also in climate parlance? Say, we know that Dobler is a person who has been, if among us, we have learned a lot from him. Say Ambassador Raul Estrada of Argentina. We have learned a lot of negotiation tricks, a lot of negotiation say tips from him. Say like this. These are the people who have been in this process for many months, many years, and also some of our professors at our universities, they have taught us, they have groomed us in a way that we see from a global perspective, our national issues, our national things, national policy planning from a global perspective, or say regional perspective, and then also national perspective. So that way we used to craft our national position. So in your case, who have been, say, in that?
So I think I was certainly most influenced during my university time by Professor Walter Kärlin, who is a human rights specialist and international lawyer at the University of Bern. And then when I moved to NYU New York, it was clearly Philip Sands, who was then from London, but he was visiting professor in New York, and Dick Stewart from NYU. Philip Sands and Dick Stewart both have really learned me how to approach environmental issues from a strategic and substantive manner, and not to be afraid of looking at certain problems from different angles, because only by looking from different angles are we able to find the best way forward. And then in the negotiations, I was certainly strongly influenced by my predecessor in the Swiss government, Beat Mops, and then many of the other negotiators, Kishan, Andrea, and so many who I really showed again and again that even when we do not reach what we were aspiring for, that we still have to remain committed and engaged.
Thank you very much for recalling them, because these are the people who we must admire, we must shower our respects. They deserve those. In my case also, I have found my university professor, A.N.M. Mahmood, who was a Harvard professor, who taught at Harvard and also at my university, Dhaka University. And a couple of others, Professor Anisur Rahman, he was also a professor of Harvard and also a professor of economics at Dhaka University. Professor Mahmood, Professor Aman Huda, who was our finance minister, planning minister, and also vice president, and also governor of the then East Pakistan. So these are the people who taught us, who groomed us in economics, environmental economics, and all those issues. Professor Shirazul Islam Chaudhry, Professor Wahiduddin Mahmood, who was a teacher of Cambridge, but also a professor in economics in Dhaka University. And also, as I mentioned that, I recall fondly Ambassador Raul Estrada of Argentina, who was in the crafting of the convention itself. He presided over, and also in the COP1 in Berlin. I still fondly remember he was presiding over, and then at technical level, and then also say Angela Merkel, who was at that time Minister of Germany, but presiding over in the first conference of the parties and crafting Berlin Mandate to arc out Paris Agreement, Kyoto Protocol in 1997. And even in Kyoto, Ambassador Raul Estrada was chair of the Committee of the Whole. So these people, and also say Kishan Kumar Singh is a say and also say from UK, Peter Betts, pretty he is He's always pushing us, a lively person, Dobland, a nice guy, always smiling, always try to hammer on and trying to arc out a landing zone. So these people are really, say, in this process, very important, played a very important role, and they have shaped even mold our, say, positions, our, say, red lines collapse because of them at times. So these people hammered on us. They had a lot of influence on us. And say a couple of economists like, say, Professor Starr, his reports, we find a lot of interest in his reports. Say, Stern report, Sir Nicholas Stern. So these people must be Jeffrey Sachs. So these people really have kept on influencing us. So what is your last word?
Can I just add also, I think, can I just add also Lorenz Duvian, of course, also, and Luis Alfonso from Mexico. And Pete Petz, whom you have mentioned, he's one person whom I have learned a lot. One of the sayings he was always saying, he was absolutely right about this, that in these negotiations, process is substance. That's something that Pete had repeated again and again. It's really true. Process is substance in these climate negotiations.
And you remember, say, Connie Hedegaard. Connie, though Copenhagen COP was, but she was instrumental. And say, our good friend, for whom we say had our COP in Copenhagen, that famous negotiator, our friend. In these days, I also forget a lot of things, but he should be remembered. He was even in the run-up to the COP, Copenhagen. Then he was fired. Then say also Connie Hedegaard faded out from the scene, and that was disastrous for me, for the success failure of Copenhagen, because these two people, they are classmates. Connie and the person I am referring to, they were childhood friends. They were together, but both were fired in the final hours. So that couldn't give a fly for Copenhagen COP. Though all things we have had in Copenhagen, subsequently in Cancun, those were agreed upon, but we couldn't have that in Copenhagen. So these are, say, things we should remember. We should take lessons from those mistakes and also successes. Why it was a mistake, why it was successful. So if we can draw lessons from that, then in future we can make more successful COPs, more successful SBs, more successful climate parlays for full and effective implementation of our very dear climate convention, biodiversity convention, and also desertification convention, so that we can help achieve sustainable development. All the 17 sustainable development goals we can reach by 2030, and also all our NDCs, if we can help implement and reach 1.5 degrees and can pick up before 2030, and also have our ambition for 2025, 2030, 2035, and 2040. That way, we can monitor and have a transparent mechanism, as you have rightly pointed out, that that regime, that Article 6 negotiation is very important. Transparency mechanism, common time frame, avoiding double counting, all those things, and also integrity of the system. The framework, framing the rules is very important, and also monitoring that, evaluation of that, reporting that, verification of that. So those are important. So your last word. Thank you. Thank you. So Franz, you want to add on anything? Your last comment. Closing word.
Thank you very much, Carmel. And I would just build on what I said. I think we should honor all these very important personalities who have helped us to better understand the issues, who have brought forward our common cause. And I think the best way to honor them is also by continuing to work for a better regulated class. So the best way of honoring them is to remain active and engaged and to try to do everything that we will have make a good, important next step in Glasgow. Thank you very much, Carmel.
Thank you very much. It was really a great pleasure to have a lively conversation with you from your grooming up, from your education, from your negotiation. Thank you very much, Ambassador Franz Paris, for your take, for your reflection, for your memories, traveling down the memories, and say have a safe journey and have a pleasure trip and celebrate your father's birthday. Happy birthday to him. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will let him know. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Yeah.